in negotiations, you really don't have to speak too much. You just have to be concise and precise. This is how much money I should make. Do we agree? No. State your position. I state my position. Then we both know who's in a position of strength or weakness. And then we take into other factors. Am I thinking of this person as a long-term partner? Or am I thinking of him as or her as a hit and run kind of relationship?
On today's episode, Tareq Hawasli, ultra-high net worth individual advisor, founder of Darren Partners, and a former board member of Sheffield United Football Club. Hi, Tareq.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. How are you?
I'm blessed. How are you?
Likewise.
Good.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do now?
What I do?
Yes.
I guess I'm a bit multifaceted. I serve as an advisor, principal advisor to a few families, conciliary as I like to call it. I also have a business called Darren Partners. We buy commercial property. I have a partnership with Flybridge Capital in the tech space out of Boston and New York. I also have a partnership with Withers Law Firm, where I help make sure that my clients' interests are taken care of by the best private lawyers there are. And little bips and bops here and there.
That's a very abundant array of things that you're doing. So I would like to know a little bit more about the journey of how you actually got to where you are right now. A bit of your career progression, if you will. So if you had a time machine and you could zap us both into some important moments of your life that you think were pivotal into you getting to where you are right now, where would you take us?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I guess I'd start with my childhood. When I was a kid, you know, my mother comes from a city called Homs, which is actually, funny enough, where Steve Jobs' biological father comes from. Abdel Fattah Jindali, John Jindali. He died recently, may he rest in peace. So Homs was where my mother came from, and I was born and raised in the States, but every summer my father would send me and my siblings back there. And my mother comes from a trading family. They trade Oriental goods, so like if you've ever been to the Middle East, galabiyat, pictures of Mother Mary or Allah or Jesus, et cetera, ornaments that would be bought from Jerusalem and so forth, and Lebanon and so forth, and sold to tourists. So we were wholesalers.
And Homs is in?
Homs is in Syria. And so when I'd go there every summer, I loved to see my uncle and cousin trading, older cousin. So I asked them to allow me to take some of the old goods and put up a cardboard box, kind of like Aladdin style, if you will, you know, the Disney movie, and just kind of sell on the streets. Now this was unfortunately illegal because, the police didn't want the kind of riffraff, if you want to call them, taking over business from the shops, because you'd see the streets were just, you know, these people weren't paying rent.
Are you sure this wasn't a scene from Aladdin?
No, I swear. This is something I did for like 5 summers in a row. And I'd literally sell galabiyat as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old in a language, Arabic, that I was very weak in, but numerically I became, you know, smart fast. And I started making it, you know, the age of 7, 8, you know, a couple $100s a day by selling and taking old product from my uncle. So I think that was a milestone ability for me to learn how to sell. I was dealing with all sorts of people, Bedouin people, city dweller people, all mainly poor people, very poor. So, you know, every kind of tactic being used. Having to keep an ear open, knowing that when the police came, they would yell "shil," which means pick up and run with your box, or else you're gonna, you know. And I was caught actually once. The police officer, I was selling so much, I got greedy. I forgot to listen, and they kept yelling, and I was money. And the cop grabbed me my collar, and kicked my box, and then I cursed at the time the wrong man, the leader of the country, in a very sensitive time. I was 6, 7 years old, And so the guy was like, "Is that right?" So he dragged me like on the street to this little police place. But my uncle, he was friends with the guy, so he got me out.
Wow, that's threading some thin lines very early on.
Yeah, I always took risks. I like it.
Going back to the selling point, so what were the techniques? What was working?
Today's episode is brought to you by Momo Kombucha. If, like me, you like to be healthy and enjoy life at the same time, Momo could be a great addition to your diet. Tangy and sweet, fizzy and refreshing, it's also really good for your gut. Momo is a natural, unfiltered kombucha, which means it's a fermented drink low in sugar and naturally contains probiotics and healthy organic acids. It's also full of antioxidants and acetic acid, which boosts your energy and lowers your blood sugar levels. I like to have mine on empty stomach or in the evening as a mocktail. Let me know which flavor you like best and use a discount code ISTHISIT15 to get a 15% off of your first order.
You know, when you're selling, when I was a kid, I'm literally looking up at all these adults' faces, and they're all honest people. They're not stealing. They want to buy, but they're all looking for a deal. So the technique was really just to look at the person's face. Is this person in a hurry? Is this person serious? Does this person actually like you and want to help you because you're a kid? Is this person actually need this merchandise, and so forth? So every person had a different technique, if you will. But fundamentally, I like to make people feel good. It makes me feel good. And I think energy builds on energy. And I think if you're going to be in sales or in advice or really in anything, you need to get that energy from people much less fortunate than yourself. I'm the son of a doctor. I'm, with kids who dropped out of school from 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. They never had any school and they couldn't read or write. And I'm sitting with them as an American, of Arab, Damascus. My father's from Damascus, but my mom's from Homs heritage, just sitting there and selling. And these guys, they loved me. They respected me because, Michael Jackson was hot, Madonna was hot, George Michael, and, America was really on the top of the world in the early 80s. So going back to sales techniques, it's just learning how to make people feel good and then making them feel comfortable to pay the price that you tell them is the fair price.
And is that last bit down to negotiation skills?
Yeah. So it depends on how greedy you're feeling that day. Sadly, fundamentally, you need to eat, you need to make a profit, you need to make a margin. And some days you're less selfish, some days you're more selfish, some days you're more selfless, some days you're less selfless. So you try to find that balance. And I think there's a good ratio of the type of profit margin I'd like to make and then give back. Because usually when I was at that age, I only made money so I can go back to the neighborhood and buy all the kids Twixes and Snickers. And
no way.
Yeah, I never say. I mean, that's maybe I should have been a better saver of the money, but making money wasn't a scary thing for me. There were many ways to do it. And
why do you think it wasn't scary for you?
Well, because I was thrown in the deep end in an early age in my mother's hometown.
At that age, you don't have the fear yet.
At that age, if you don't have the fear and you're in the deep end, I mean, I've been slapped before by older men, 40-year-old men. It's difficult for someone with my background to go to a place that speaks zero English to somehow be connected to those people because there is connection through my mother in my mother's town. And to try to kind of convince them that you're worth taking a space in their little shop. Each little chair, there's only 3 or 4 spots, and you want to be in the gold shop or you want to be in the chair,
Fascinating. Yeah. And
so that's a little bit of my childhood snapshot for you.
I mean, I wanna hear much more, but just on this one already, the story that you shared, I've been in sales for 8 years.
Yeah.
So I can really relate to what you said, especially the thing about energy. So I was very good at what I was doing, and I was awarded, the best salesperson in the world for the company that I was working and things like that. And sometimes people would ask me, so what's your secret? You know, why are you good? And it was always a very weird question for me to try to answer because I didn't think I was selling at any moment. For me, I was just connecting with the people. And later on, in hindsight, I understood that my motivation was always, it wasn't a conscious thing, but I wanted every person, every client that came into my showroom to feel better than when they came in, to exit with the better feeling. But that wasn't a conscious thing back then. But looking back, I understood that that was also the reason why I did it for so long, is because I had that connection with people and I could actually make an impact on their day just by serving them.
Beautiful.
Even this, what I said serving and not selling, you see. So I catch myself. So it very much resonated what you said, and it's fascinating that you had that at that age, which makes me think it's really a natural thing. That is how it should be.
I think you're right. It should be naturally. You know, so my forefathers come from a land of Quraysh, if you will, which is, you know, Mecca and so forth, and then they migrated to Damascus. And they used to send their kids, and I think still in the GCC, there's a tradition where they would send their boys mainly off when they reach a certain age to kind of learn the desert life, riding horses, falconry, shooting a bow and arrow, or, you know, kind of how to kind of become transformed into a young adult, if you will. So I think that period for me, because growing up in Atlanta, you know, I was born and raised in the States, I was in a bubble of comfort. And you know, my dad was an invasive cardiologist in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, really his peak years. And those were the years to be a doctor in America. You know, you were making 7 figures, easy. So I had a good life. There was nothing I ever wanted that I didn't get when I was in Atlanta. My dad wanted to give me the life he never had because he studied in Damascus, and I think he was one of the top, if not the top student in the country. And he's, you know, he got a green card in like a day or something during those days, during the Vietnam War. And so he moved to Michigan. But you know, he never saw his father because my grandfather was living in Kuwait at the time, sending money back. So my grandmother, Hayat, raised 8 children. So he had it tough, but he made sure me and my siblings had it completely the opposite. We were spoiled, really. I mean...
Is that a good thing?
When you're getting spoiled at the time, it feels good. Now, does it create bad habits? Absolutely. Did I have to kind of, you know, work on those when I got older? Absolutely.
What were the bad habits?
Well, you know, when you're spoiled, and I mean, I don't want to say spoiled, I would say in a upper middle class way, not a ultra high net worth, but upper middle class. You know, you become a bit lazy. You know, you're on your Nintendo all the time. You're getting a new game every week. You're just lazy. You're enjoying, you know, so you don't really do much work, homework, you know, things like that. A bit rebellious because you know you can kind of get your way. You know that the red line isn't really a red line. But
That's
those are the main ones.
One, right?
That is probably the dangerous one, and the one that eventually you have to, when you're older, face in the mirror.
What was the painful moment that made you unlearn that?
Well, my dad once bought me a Land Cruiser as my first car, which was the nicest car in my high school, and made me probably one of the coolest guys. I felt like the coolest guys in the school for sure, and the girls recognized, and it was, you know, it was good times. Tupac, Biggie Smalls, you know, I was blasting it in that Land Cruiser, fully spec'd, everything, and he generously bought it, all cash, and he was like, it's yours. But he didn't want me going on spring break, because I wanted to take that car to Panama City and really just, you know, bump it out, you know, go crazy, go wild. He knew it. He was like, nope, you're not going to spring break this year. You're going to spend it with me. I just bought you a nice car. spring break is my time with you. And so I said, all right, I'll just take another car. And I went down. I defied him. And so he took my car and he sold it to one of his doctor friends. He actually made a profit. So I felt good he made a profit. But, you know, broke my heart, gave me my mom's old car, station wagon. You know, my stock went down real fast again. And I realized that my dad reached his red line and never to push it again. And I never did.
That's a good lesson then. Yeah. Don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Don't bite the hand that feeds you. But more than that, listen to your parents. Yeah, try to do it as much as you can. Most of the time they're right. A lot of the times they're wrong. But when it comes to like moral fiber, they're right. Like about how to look at people, how to trust people, how to build relationships with people, how to love people, how to try to be selfless, you know, all these moral values that are, you know, across the board, across any culture, well loved and received, but difficult to practice.
I read in an interview that you did that your father taught you a lesson at an early age. He said, life is a series of problems.
Yeah.
Through the practice of discipline, delaying gratification, and dedication to truth above all else, you will have the keys to navigate through those problems and ultimately life as best as one can.
Yeah, from Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled. That's one of his maybe 3 favorite Western books. Absolutely.
So it seems to me that you've kind of taken that on board,
well,
right?
I've had no choice. That's, you know, in the last 30 years, he kind of drilled that in my thick head. And yes, absolutely. Now, it's hard. You know, the truth part, dedication to truth isn't hard, but delaying gratification is hard because it requires a lot of discipline. And discipline is I'm much better than I used to be, but it didn't come natural to me. I really had to work hard on that.
It is a hard one, I think, for most of the people to master. So what helped you?
Just looking in the mirror and saying you are at ground zero and you better be humble and start walking, start jogging, start working out, meet good people, positive people that will help lift you up. Start giving people, you know, start opening up your world, your network, you know, don't think in a Machiavellian way because only diseased hearts end up thinking that way. In my humble opinion. And yeah, it sets you free, and you know, you just have to kind of just keep grinding, stay consistent. You will fall off. I fall off sometimes, many times, but then you just get back on. You don't even think about it. You're like, okay, so, you know, I didn't work out for a day or two. All right, get back on the 3rd day. Do your spiritual, you know, needs, whatever it is, if it's breathing exercises or praying or walking in nature or all of the above, but get that self-healing that is necessary every day, because if you don't get that, then you can't give it authentically back to the world. So yeah.
What about the temptations?
Life is full of temptations, and as long as you're pure of heart with how you go about with temptations, be it professional, personal, then you're good. As long as you realize there's someone above you that will judge you, and you're not someone that's just going to hurt people, personally or professionally, you're going to try to actually add value to those people, knowing that your life is what your life is. And, you know, and then for me, I don't like to go out late at night. I don't find that really anything good for me happens late at night.
Oh, it can be anything. It can be having a chocolate bar when you know you're on a diet or something. It can be anything.
Yeah, but those are like Mickey Mouse temptations, chocolate bar and stuff.
One leads to another, though.
Yeah, they one leads to
matter of character.
I'll pound some chocolate when I'm like in a bad mood, you know, once a month, you know, I'll and I like it, but usually I don't have problems with that stuff. I'm with food, I've changed the whole way I eat. I try to stay minimalist.
What other valuable lessons did your father teach you?
Always be punctual. Never be in debt. And there's a word called taqwa, yani always keep your North Star, your star with the star of your maker, just aligned with him, and just make sure that you're going straight on the straight path. And as long as you're going on the straight path, nothing that's meant to hurt you'll never be hurt unless it was meant for you to be hurt. And just follow that path. Don't alleviate from that. My dad's he's not just taught. He didn't just teach me. He taught. I mean, he's an ustaz. He's a hakim. He's a wise man, if you will. He's a clan leader, if you will. He's loved by many, respected by more than love him. He's a poet. He's a scholar. He's a descendant. He's a physician. He's a brilliant man. So there was a lot I learned from him.
I can imagine that he was a very important role model for you growing up.
Yeah, he is. And he's had to play the role of a father and mother now, because my mother just passed away recently, a couple months ago. May she rest in peace. Allah yarhamah, yeah. And she was, I got a lot of my personality from my mother. So she was one of a kind, without a doubt. But my dad's playing now the role of both, which he does very well. And, he walks in nature every day. That's what he does for like 3 hours, 4 hours, and reads his books, and he's in a happy place. He's like, I'm just waiting for when I meet your mom again. He's like looking forward to it. I'm like, no, Dad, we need you for another 10, 15, 20 years. Don't rush. But he's healthy, knock on wood. So, yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Funny, we were just talking before we started recording about nature and its impact on the human being. I always think that the knowledge, or rather the wisdom, doesn't really belong to anyone.
Yeah.
It's in ether. It's always available at all times for those who are able to tap into it. So I think nature is a great place to do that.
100%. And it's just there's nothing more natural than being in nature. Ultimately, all we are is flesh, bones, and dust. I mean, we're fertilizer down the road. So people we pump our chests too much, and I really you sit with important people, and I'm blessed to be able to sit with really important people. Like some of them, and I read their bios, and I'm like, wow, I'm able to sit with this person and work with this person and I learn from that person. And some of them are very humble, some are not. Hey, that's fine, that's life. They're alphas, by merit or not, but they're alphas. And for me, they're just the same as me, the janitor, the waiter, the teacher, flesh, bones, and dust. And I always kind of give the metaphor of ultimately we all build a sandcastle. Mine may be 3 rooms in a little hut. A king of the Sultan of Brunei's may be a massive. But when the ocean comes in, it takes it and wipes that sandcastle, and it's a reset. When
I guess that really can help you, keep you humble.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, that notion.
If you're not humble, you'll never have, you can't attain a crystal clear heart. And ultimately, every day I aim to speak to anyone I speak to with a crystal clear heart, because it makes me feel good.
From everything you do, I think at the basis of all of it is relationships.
Yeah.
Good relationships.
Yeah.
So in another one of your interviews, you say, most of us have emotional intelligence, but being able to harness that gift and use it in a disciplined, focused, and well-mannered manner, that is difficult. So what rules do you abide by that let you harness that EQ?
Yeah, that's a good question. I need to think about that for 5 seconds. Some of it really comes naturally, without thinking. I wouldn't say I'm the wisest person. I'm not the best thinker. I'm working on those characteristics, developing them, just to be at least average or above average. I'd like to be somewhat of a thinker one day. I'd like to be somewhat of a wise man someday. but instinctively, naturally, I am an empath, I am a healer, I am a قبول. I have this ability to break down barriers and build bridges and bridge gaps and so forth. So I am a connector. My brother, Hazem, who's really like, he's brilliant. He's the one who actually told me first. He read a book, I forget which book. He was like, Tareq, you're a connector. That's what you are, and I love it. And it's just about making the people you care about keep growing and getting better, stronger, having better teams, better product, etc. And then ultimately you growing with them because they want to see you grow. It's I don't like working with people, and I've worked with people before. It's normal, it's natural that they like you to grow, but to a certain limit. They don't like you to grow to your potential, and that's okay. That's life, and that's fair. And everyone wants a rosy story, but not every story is a rosy story. But you are always grateful to everyone in your history that gave you a ladder, a step forward, or a step up. Not everyone's going to give you 10 steps or 5 steps, but just one. That was good, So I try my very best, everyone along my path who's helped me, even if it's minutely, just to keep them connected to me. If they're older, retired, doesn't matter. Like I knew them when they were 20 years ago, the big honchos, the big people. They're no longer that. People now my generation are kind of, in the worlds I walk, are the ones running the show. I'm not that big person, but they are, and I'm somewhat influential in some circles. So people may have the perception of me being important in some circles. But in 20 years, I'll be insignificant, maybe even faster than that, to be honest. It's scary, but it's true. Probably not though, because I think as AI grows, human needs will be even stronger. So people like us are going to be in much more demand, people who can talk to people and help people and so forth. But yeah, that's my rant.
Okay. I mean, immediately, again, maybe that's why we get along, because of this communality of connecting people. So my question is, how do you make a living out of it?
Money?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you need money. If you don't have money, then you're screwed. So for me, I think anyone who's simple, let's say I'm a simple person, I understand what throughout history, I love history, I love theology, politics, international affairs, what binds us together, what doesn't as a human race, okay? So that's very important for me. So if you understand the history, it's always been through commerce, trading from the Silk Road, or take any millions or thousands of examples. But in today's world, people like bricks and mortar. It's very simple. You have land, you need house, or you need big house, or you need office, or you need big office. ABC 1, 2, 3, it goes back to our instinctive Lego days. Why do you think Lego became so important? It's the brilliance of reverse engineering that, and making kids kind of understand the importance and become brilliant architects and builders and so forth. So, yeah, build a business in real estate. Try to get yourself some asset management. Make sure you have a really smart team who are smarter than you. I have a great partner in David Bell, who's brilliant. Joe, finance director. Good people who supported us from the GCC. And then you can draw a nice salary and dividends and all that pretty, that's important, right? And real estate's an easier way. It's more competitive, but I think really it's an easier way to have a conversation with anyone. London is full of wealthy people. Dubai is full of wealthy people. You can go to like any chocolate, whatever, Godiva or like cafe or club or hotel lounge and be dressed well and just have a conversation about an apartment in Dubai that you actually have in real knowledge. I mean, it's it's desirable. The same in London. If I don't know anybody, that's an easy way to start. So that's one. Get money. I work above the board. I don't do below the board money. I don't judge people who do that. You know.
What do you mean by that?
I like ethical investing. Just simple ethical. It makes me feel good, and I don't like investments that make me feel bad. And everyone is different, but like I don't like to invest in the gambling industry, for example. That's not, people are like, oh, is it Muslim or this? I'm like, no. You must understand. Fundamentally, I just think gambling is a disease, you know, and that's okay. Human beings are allowed to engage, you know, and that's why they're adults. You have choice, but it's not for me, and I don't want to ever promote that. Yeah. But I love tech. I love the AI world because I know nothing about it, and I'm partners with people much more brilliant than me. So Jeff Busgang, who also teaches at Harvard Business School, brilliant man. His father just passed away, may he rest in peace. Another big, brilliant man. I think he'll be known for many things, but the Busgang theory is one of them that will make him legendary, or made him legendary. Then, amongst the many other things he did, then you have Jesse and his other partners. They're really lovely people. They bring a lot of knowledge to my client base, and we're partners. And I've really enjoyed working with Flybridge. So for me, real estate, because should be. I mean, we're living in a difficult market right now, but usually it should be kind of. You should know your cash flow coming in. Tech, because that's where hopefully you're going to be able to grow. You'll create wealth creation. Real estate pays the bills, pays tuitions, pays, you know, whatever. If you have a mortgage, if you have whatever, you know, the tech is where you make that money go buy another house or buy a piece of land or make a small development. And I've also made, you know, money through the legal firm that I work with, Withers, and assisting families. You know, eventually you're able to sit down, and eventually families will say, "Hey, I want you on retainer." So there's a lot of way to slice and cut, you know, things, and not have to be a conventional banker at a private equity house or a Carlyle or whatever. You know, and the methodology is ultimately, fundamentally, who do you work with best, and how do you provide value for them in the areas they want you to provide value for them, you know? So that means you have to be a really good listener. And this was a talent that I had to develop. I didn't think I had that talent, but I actually unlocked it, and I do have it, but I unlocked it in an older age. So, you know, it's hard to unlearn and learn again, but I did that, and that was a great feeling, a great victory in my life. So yeah, I think that for me, real estate, tech, the legal, because I need to make sure everyone's good from a legal point of view, best as I can.
The families you advise.
The families I advise, and then sports, because I had a relationship, and I have a friendship, but a professional relationship with Prince Abdullah bin Saad for about 3 years at Sheffield United, and really it was an amazing experience. We went from League One to the Premier League. I think he's one of the most brilliant minds in sports, not just from Saudi Arabia, but globally. And he shed a lot of knowledge on me, his team did. And I've gone on now and joined forces with another group, and we're looking at doing something in that space. So, inshallah, fingers crossed. I've failed before, and I've failed in many businesses before, maybe like 2 or 3, which I'm not ashamed about, but we're definitely sour pills to swallow.
Those are the most precious ones, right?
You know, you just ultimately, failure for me has to do with either taking too much on that I can't handle, and or choosing the wrong people. Not because they're the wrong people, but everyone. So let's say I'm the right person in this day and age. In 5 years, I could be the wrong person. So you need to, you know, and this is something that I learned living in London, London is such a hypersensitive market. You're only as good as your last deal. Like if you buy a building for 60 million, make a nice fee, and you'll celebrate it for a couple of days, a weekend maybe. Then you're back on the hunt. Not because you have to or want to, it's a necessity as well. London is so expensive. London is so merciless. London is so beautiful. London is where you want to be. Dubai as well, to a lesser extent, or maybe greater, depending on where you sit in the kind of ecosystem, geopolitical ecosystem. But yeah, it's fun.
Talk to me about these failed businesses.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, well, you shared your first stint at entrepreneurship when you were 6, 7. What about after that? I mean, there was a trajectory of things that you did and tried before you arrived to where you are today. I'm very curious about this.
So professionally, you can just check me out on LinkedIn. You'll see all my background. But I went to a private equity house when I first left the University of Georgia, Atlanta. There was a PE firm called R Capita, based out of the Kingdom of Bahrain. And effectively, the short story is the CEO, is best friends. He's family. And he was like, look, come to me when you graduate. So I said, really my dad, I trust him more than anyone. And, he, thank you. He was, I wanted to go to California and, or be a diplomat in the foreign services. That's the kind of career path I wanted when I was in college. And my dad was like, go into business, learn the business. If you do good, you'll be able to help more people if that's your intention. So I was like, okay, Dad, where do I go? And R Capita came about. And the CEO at the time, and still the CEO, he asked me, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to sell. And I've had lots of stints of selling. I was a waiter. I used to sell for the Georgia, raise funds for the Georgia police to try to get people to give donations. I used to, Dial America. So I've had like 9 hotels. I've had 9 or 10 stints in high school, middle school, in America, and humps as well, as you know. But R Capita was my first real job post-graduating. And
when you got to that one, from all those 9 things that you had done before, what do you think was the most useful?
My survival skills. Because I went to a completely new world where I had no clue. And I didn't know, and I don't think anyone was able to really prepare me, because I was a bit of a hybrid. I'm an American, but I'm an Arab Muslim, but I'm more of an American. And at the time, I was very much a fresh fraternity brother, Southern American. The only difference between, I'm even a white Arab, which is rare. It's not too many. So the only difference is that my name is Tareq Hawasli and not Tom Hardy, or someone like that, Tom Arnold or whatever. So when I came out there, I tried my best to kind of fit in the Arab or the Muslim, but it wasn't authentic. And there was a lot of Americans in Bahrain at the time, but they were soldiers and stuff, and I didn't really, they weren't my cup of tea. So, I worked for, a wonderful PE house who had access to the wealthiest people in the GCC region, who advised them, who invested in alternative investments, private equity, real estate, asset management, infrastructure, venture capital throughout the world, globally. At the time, we had $28 billion of assets under management. I was in placement and sales. I was working with really probably the premier fundraising team of the GCC region, especially during 2003 to 2007. InvestCorp and other banks were trying to take our people, me included. So it was a good time, and we were making good money. But I wasn't prepared mentally to understand really what all of this was. I understood the prestige and the glitz and the glamour and feeling important and feeling, like I'm giving advice. And I raised money. I raised a lot of money from the UAE, from Saudi Arabia, for our Capita products. but I didn't know what I was doing, 100%. And I didn't focus on the right things, and that's on me. So that was a failure, but I had many successes at our capita. But one thing I wish I had focused earlier on was just the more, if you will, details, because the devil lies in the details always. But that was a great experience. Unfortunately, the GFC happened.
What makes you say that about details? What specific experience?
I just feel like there was a point in my life where I was very gullible, very trusting. I've always been a trusting person. I liked being a trusting person. I like to see I'm a glass half full guy, very simply put. I would look at someone usually, unless instinctively there's something off chemistry-wise, we don't click. 9 out of 10 times I'm going to look at that person and think better or give them the benefit of the doubt. It's just the way I'm wired. But in business, no matter how ethical the other person is or you are, you should always have everything written down. You should always make sure that you understand contracts, you understand points, you understand your position and their position, you understand BATNA, you understand all these kind of terms. And it's not because anyone is wrong, but it's because the misinterpretation can be much more vague, much more broad, to where one could feel slighted or the other could feel slighted and so forth. So, hence my partnership with Withers as well, if I can be honest with you. I like the fact that they take care of me, so I can take care of the clients for them. So that was something that I learned. But I was blessed. I mean, I would get bonuses, nice bonuses, and I'd always wanted to go to education. So they sent me to INSEAD, to Fontainebleau, and to Singapore, which was an amazing experience, confidence building experience. Then they sent me to London Business School, where I did my master's, paid for in full for both, which is an honor and a luxury, where again, I felt more empowered, my confidence, my network. I felt better. I was like, okay, I get this game now. And so then I left our capita because the GFC happened, and our capita was going through a difficult period, and they're back and they're doing very well now. But during those days, they filed for Chapter 11 and they were going for a difficult restructuring. So I was going to go into real estate, learn the business, and come back to them. But I just continued in real estate. I met Michael Evans. He owned the Gherkin. He owned Bank of America's headquarters, FCA. Actually, I didn't meet Michael first. I met Kent Gardner, who was the neighbor, our old neighbor, my father-in-law's neighbor. And he had just had a child, so I knocked on his door and gave him flowers and started talking to him. And then I found out he's the CEO, and he introduced me to Michael. Michael's the chairman. Michael,
You knocked on his door and gave him flowers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the guy, just had a child. It's a normal thing to do because, or maybe a traditional normal thing to do. But again, I mean, your neighbor is almost like your home, right? You defend their property like they defend yours. You love them, in theory. So anyway, Kent was a great neighbor, but as a boss, he really wasn't my boss. Michael Evans, he introduced me to Michael, the chairman, and there was Kent and Paul. I worked with them; they're great guys. But Michael Evans, we made a lot of money with him in America for a while, and then also the UK. And then I left Michael Evans and Evans Randall with David Bell and set up Darwin Partners. So that's kind of the trajectory. Failure. Dar was a big failure of mine, which Phi is proportionality, Dar is house. So, and it was a name that came to fruit by my dear friend Jessie. And Jessie at the time, who was called the Queen of Dubai, was a very old friend of mine, brilliant person, who really saw a vision of what advisory real estate service should be in Dubai. And we built it together. And the first 3-4 years, it was just taking off amazingly. But I had taken on too much. I had Sheffield United, I had Darien Partners, and I couldn't handle FIDAR. So I wasn't spending as much time, and there were different people, different egos, things happened, and that wasn't, it was an ugly, that was a painful lesson.
What was the lesson? Not spreading yourself too thin?
I didn't choose wisely in some departments, and there's some things that also you shouldn't feel guilty about because you can't see everything. So that's okay. But it definitely I mean, it was a tough pill to swallow. It still pains me, to be honest with you. But you know, you have to also make a differentiation between friend, if you're going to go into business with a friend, and colleague.
So the lesson is about people picking, or?
Yeah. Always with me, it's my core job really in any business I'm in is the people.
So what in hindsight went wrong there, or what would have you done differently?
I would have either based myself there to begin with until I found a junior to kind of replace me, focus just on the investment deal side, while Jesse would have focused with the PR, media, and research side. And then I would have hired someone to lead the deal execution side, because that wasn't the area of strength that Jesse had, and in my humble opinion, and therefore she wasn't supported with the funding that she needed to buy. So I would have hired someone from the very beginning, or I would have sat in that position. Bless her heart, she tried her very best, and I would delegate as much as I could, but this was a role that I couldn't delegate. This was a role I had to take ownership of, and I couldn't because I had to focus all my energy at the time at Sheffield United.
I guess what sort of filter or what sort of protocol do you have now in picking the right people, be it people you want to invest in, people you want to work with, people you accept as investors in you?
Usually now I just have smarter people than me do the picking, or the shortlisting, and then I'll meet 3 people and give my opinion, and then one of them is going to usually be picked that I give my final opinion on. But I guess I'm a lot more layered now. I'm moving more towards the principal level side of the business, where I was always on the other side from a young selling and this, that. It's actually now buying. And that's scary because there's a power in buying. And I always like the vulnerability of selling, because you never know, what if I don't, but it makes you sharp because what did I do wrong? What do I need? Who do I need to call? But no, actually moving and transitioning from selling to buying, a role of a principal, even though I'm a principal advisor, and but I'm moving more into that true advice, if you will, principal-like feel, where it is actually my money, but it's not, but I do get paid, and potentially very handsomely if my picks are right. So I'm taking it step by step. In the past, I tried to run before I could crawl or before I walk. I won't take on any project unless... I had the other day a very, very brilliant group of people. They gave me a nice 6-figure retainer just to spend 3 months, 4 months, build their Saudi team, business equity team for them. And I was going to sign it just because it's nice to get some extra money. I like it. Everyone needs money. But I was just like, is that authentic? Actually, no, it's not. Number one, I'm doing myself a disservice because why is it 6 figures? Let me go take him out there for a couple of days and show him what I got and how my people are. And then maybe I'll go charge 7 figures. Or no, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just be an investor myself. I don't know. But I'll have the options. Because we live in a world where seeing is believing. And so in the past, I sold myself cheaply. That's another vice, if you will. I didn't know my worth until at an older age. But that was a blessing of COVID.
So I'd like to ask you something that I ask all of my guests. What is your purpose?
My purpose?
Yeah.
My purpose is to give, to help build, to add value, to love, to give hope, to listen, just to be a small element of light in anyone I touch, and to move on to the next world, hopefully as a good person and to a happier place.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. When did you have a clear understanding of what your purpose was?
When I knew that fundamentally all we are is just flesh, bones, and dust, and when I was able to really understand how to control and tame the ego and become a master actually at doing that, I think I'm really good at that, not just for myself, but for others who are very powerful people or influential people that need their ego humbled before it's popped. Better to have it humbled by someone truthful and smart and considerate than to have it popped by the outside world. So yeah, I don't mess around, like, it's just, some people don't like it, but people who are really wanting to be the best versions of themselves, they seek advice from people, different people that know their area of expertise. And yeah, I'm known for one or two areas.
It seems that, again, it always goes back to people around you, the connections, the skills that you acquired over the years. One of them being the listening, I think was definitely pivotal. How did you unlock it for yourself?
Look, and still unlocking it, but getting better actually. I feel good because I'm surprisingly better at it than I gave myself credit for being. And people always told me, ever since I was a kid, you need to listen, Isma.
Two ears, one mouth.
Yeah, exactly. But I was always just ready. Tareq talks, ready to talk. I was thinking of naming a podcast Tareq Talks once, but during COVID, but that one flamed out.
There's always time.
No, it's not for me. But the more people that cared about me and I knew cared about me told me to listen, the more I realized during COVID, which was the biggest blessing maybe in my life, because it gave me, and everyone in the world, I think, that used it, and I used COVID for the better. Not the first month, but the next 12 to 18 months, if you will.
What happened during COVID for you?
Well, I had time, and I did a lot of self-reflection, and I realized all my problems were self-inflicted. And I always, not always, but many times I would find a way, and I was very good at finding a way why it wasn't my fault. This was an excuse. So I learned about no excuses during COVID. There's just no excuses, right? Even if you give an excuse, it's not an excuse. It's just a reason, just so you know my reason. It's not an excuse, but this is my reason. I failed, or I've changed, or I've pivoted, or I became one with nature, like you talked about. I never really, I love nature, but I never knew the depth of its importance. I fell in love with the morning. I became a morning walker, even in the winter. So I'd wake up 4:30, 5, anytime, and I'd just walk around Regent's Park to the top of Primrose Hill, exercise sometimes. And really I started to just speed experimenting in different ventures, failing in many of them, succeeding in one or two of them, and then realizing, okay, this is where and also the last thing that COVID really helped me was realizing, that I'm speaking to the most important people in the world on the screen because they want money, or I want money, and the product, etc. So these people that I'd have never, if I had emailed before COVID or had a PA, they'd never give me time. American billionaires and, you know, owners of sports teams and this, that. But then I just realized these are people just like you and me, and they're isolated, they're scared, they don't know. They're probably more afraid than I am. They have more to lose, more money, more kids, more houses, etc. So I let loose and just really kind of transformed. The caterpillar became a butterfly, if you will, or if you will, you know, the tiger found his teeth.
Interesting. I am always fascinated to hear about people's stories during COVID and what was the experience that they had, essentially.
Yeah.
I definitely also had a good time. Not a good time, but I definitely didn't have a bad time during COVID. And I think in any situation we can see the bad or we can see the good, and certainly COVID did have a lot of silver linings all across.
I mean, I never wore the mask. I wasn't good at it. I had a massive, crazy beard for about 3-4 years. It was because of the Vikings. I love that TV series.
That was a good show.
And my sister, you know, and others, they said I look like Ragnar Lothbrok, and you know, kind of, you know, they put
they mentioned it, yeah.
So I
just need some braids.
Yeah, no, so I'd get like a gif with braids. I was like, all right, I'm liking this beard look, but yeah, I had to kind of keep it a little bit more civilized. At this length, but I do like a big beard. I think it's cool. It's masculine. Sadly, though, society doesn't. I don't know. It's intimidating to a lot of people.
Are you religious?
Define religious. I'm spiritual. I'm very spiritual.
Define spiritual.
Like, I believe in God. I believe in monotheism. I believe in helping people. I believe looking in the light instead of looking at the darkness. My ethos, if you will, on my WhatsApp or whatever, my name hasn't been Tareq Hawasli, it's been peace and prosperity. That's my motto. It's one of my mottos. So I ultimately, no matter how much there is jealousy and division and history and whatnot, there have been times of peace and prosperity as well between Muslims, Christians, Jews, or if you look at India, Muslims and Hindus mainly, or if you look at China, you know, Confucius and Muslims. And so there's always been moments of peace and prosperity. It's usually when human greed, you know, tips the scale, so do these kind of tit for tat, reptilian brain, Neanderthal needs, if you will, come into fruition, proxy wars and, you know, all that other stuff that, you know, that happens. You know, it was funny because I had a guy originally of Slavic origin, and we were talking about African Americans and how slavery was wrong, and of course it's horrible. But he was like, hey, no one ever talks about my people, the Slavs. And I go, well, what are your people? He was like, we were slaves for hundreds, if not thousands. We were the first slaves, actually. That's why the slaves come from Slav. I was like, oh, is that right? I was like, I'm sorry. And, you know, I was like, I'm sorry to you guys. I didn't know what to say. You know, like, I felt like he wanted a pat on the back. Like, you know, so there are people with deep-rooted pains, historical pains, that aren't being addressed. I mean, now we're addressing the woke, if you will, or Black Lives Matter, or, you know, Andrew Tate kind of extreme, and you know, you've got one extreme here on the left, and Andrew Tate, super conservative, kind of macho, masculine, Tristan and him, right in many ways, Candace, right, Owens, right in many ways, Tucker Carlson, right in so many ways, but then on the left, you have people that are right in some ways, but ultimately the shift and divide has become so wide, there's nothing that can happen but decay. Until a middle ground is reached, sadly.
I think that most of our problems today are coming from the inability or unwillingness and inability of people of direct opposing opinions and beliefs to sit down at one table and have a real conversation. And when I say real conversation, it's just listen and be okay with whatever they hear And if they can even try to have an open mind to try to understand where that person is coming from, incredible things can happen.
Agreed. Yeah. Incredible things need to happen, and if they don't happen, then sadly, you know. I mean, that's where we're.
Dun, dun, dun.
Maybe I need to just pack it all up and go live in Barbados or something, you know, and see you guys.
My plan C was always go somewhere on an island and open a tiki bar. You know,
good
life.
I wanted to open a coffee shop. I do want to open a coffee shop one day.
You do look like you could be a very good barista. You have the very trendy look.
Yeah,
you know that.
I want to. Yeah, I think one day I will. I've been talking about it for a couple of years, but one day I think I will.
Like a boutique
It'll be nice.
connoisseur
I'm gonna
coffee
make sure it's gonna be
shop.
nice. It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be different.
I'll be coming for coffee.
All right. I hope you'll be a regular.
Yes, for sure. So we've spoken about many things, but if I asked you to share with me 3 lessons that are very precious to you, that have benefited you immensely in your lifetime.
Are we allowed to curse?
Please, I'll put explicit on the episode.
Yeah, so, so one of the harshest but most valuable lessons that someone taught me was to just shut the fuck up. So sometimes many times silence is golden while speaking is silver, I think was the famous saying. Yep. So that was a very valuable lesson. And hence, it's intertwined with listening, right? Because when you shut the fuck up, you have to listen. So,
can you paint the picture of that scenario?
Well, when you in negotiations, you really don't have to speak too much. You just have to be concise and precise. So, this is what I bring to the table. This is what you bring to the table. Do we agree? Yes. Okay. This is how much money you're making. This is how much money I should make. Do we agree? No. State your position. I state my position. Then we both know who's in a position of strength or weakness. And then we take into other factors. Am I thinking of this person as a long-term partner? Or am I thinking of him or her as a hit and run kind of relationship? So I have peers, if you will, who are in the placement world. They'll go and they'll spray and pray and make a lot of money that way. I'm not like that. I'm into long-term. As one of my friends tells me, you're long-term greedy. I still kind of don't understand it, but I think what he's trying to say, or what he meant was, like, I imagine you to be wealthy, very wealthy one day, but not when I'm in my 40s, not in my 50s, maybe 60s or 70s, at my later, if I live to be that old. So I take that as a compliment. So on to a second lesson is pick your partners wisely and make sure you're ready to dedicate the time to make whatever goal you have or aspiration you have aligned interests become a success. So I have friends who've taken the entrepreneurial dip, but they've jumped in for 6 months, 1 year when they see things are just not happening the way they envisioned it. We all envision things to be beautiful. I mean, we see the end goal, but we don't know the path all the way to that goal. And most of the time, we get swiped and then it's over. So as an entrepreneur, you really have to develop thick skin. No is not a bad word. No is not an insult. No is not a rejection. No is nothing personal. No is actually the most beautiful and honest way for you to get to yes. Mm-hmm. No is a question. No.
An invite for more information.
Exactly. So you must, for me, I had to be good at what I believe I'm pretty good at to do. I needed to understand what no really meant. The essence of no, la. Because for me, I'm in the business of yes. So why am I getting no? Either I don't do my homework in a particular subject matter, I'm not well networked enough. the people that are giving me information are kind of behind the curve or giving me, second-class information, either because I'm choosing the wrong investment strategy or business strategy or people strategy, so I have to always refine, working with people that want me and know that I'm able to get to a yes. Okay? Because eventually that's my job. And then once you get a yes, it's to manage your partners to make sure that they're doing their job to make everybody money.
Sounds simple.
Really, it's simple. Ultimately, again, choose your people wisely. Pick smarter people than you to work with you. Don't be greedy with when you share as well. Like, I have never, knock on wood, I don't believe I've ever, and my partners have always said that I'm very fair to generous. I pick wise, good people, and I like to give them more of the pot than a negotiator would negotiate. Because that's long term. Unless they cross me. It happens. It's business.
Those are the ones.
Yeah, you just, you drop them and you move on.
The lessons.
Yeah, everyone in business, and it's like personal life. I'm sure, you meet people, they're wonderful, but you're not on the same wavelength. You drop them and you move on.
Yeah. I think we spoke about this the other day. People all have roles to play in your life, and it's okay if it's a role of 5 minutes, an hour, a year, 10 years. It's all valuable, and it's about what you can extract from that. And equally what you can give.
So what about you? Because you're intriguing. I think you have like an ability to really connect, okay? And you're authentic and you're smart. So how does one evolve in this industry that you're in? Because frankly, and I'll be very frank, I've been asked by people who are very affluent and without mentioning names, not superstar, but pretty big. And I said, no. I've talked to a couple of people, a friend of mine in Jeddah. It was very nice. It was a spur of the moment thing. He was like, hey mate, my guy dropped down, out, and I need someone here. Are you in Jeddah? I'm like, I am. He's like, can you? I was like, sure, let's speak. So it was nice. We talked about Saudi Arabia. It was fun.
I saw that.
Yeah, it was just a fun conversation. He's a good guy. I did another one for Sheffield United. Again, it was a fun one. I did it because I was asked to do it. I wasn't really looking to do it. But in you, I see a lot of I think this is I really believe that you have a gift, and I watch a lot of Candace Owen and other people, and you have that kind of professionalism about you, which is authentic and it's good. How does one grow to become someone that is listened to, if you will, by millions?
I guess I'll tell you when I get there.
You will get there. You will get there.
I'm not in that position, so I can't really respond to that question, but I do it because I think it's an extension of who I am.
Who are you?
Well, I'm exactly the person that you see me right here. I am a connector. I am an eternal learner. And this podcast is a way for me to be me. So at some point in my life, I had to come to grips very clearly that I'm not where I want to be. I am not happy, and I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I'm doing something, professionally, that is not fulfilling. And so even though I had that growing feeling within me for a long time, I had absolutely no idea what it is that I was supposed to do. And so at some point I reached a point where I couldn't go any further any longer, because I almost had I had a moment where I was seeing myself from a third person's perspective, almost like a personality, dissociation, where I could see myself and I'd see myself as an empty shell, just being there and waiting for life to pass. And so that was that moment when I made a decision to change basically everything and what I was doing and the trajectory of my life. So after that, I just had a conversation with myself. I had an intervention. I had this exercise, out of which came out a few avenues or professions or jobs, if you will, that are inherently me. So I think we hear about a lot of people not happy with their jobs and not happy in what they're doing. And I really, truly do believe that it doesn't have to be that way, except for people that literally aren't free. They are in countries that are not allowing them to move, or in situations where unfortunately, they don't have the freedom. All of us have that freedom. And everything else is an excuse. So yes, you might take a risk. Yes, you might take a drawback in your finances. Yes, it might take a long time, but ultimately there isn't a price that's high enough that you wouldn't want to pay to live each day feeling that you're in the right place and doing what you're supposed to do. So I don't know where this podcast is going to go. I don't know if I'm ever going to go some crazy levels.
I think you will, honestly. I think you have what it takes. And your explanation right there was profound, very authentic, and you have that work ethic. And I'm honored to be speaking here. Thank you for sharing a piece of you to me.
Thank you, Tareq.
Yeah.
What is your recipe for happiness?
Balance.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello friends, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe and share it with someone. I would love to hear your feedback and suggestions as to what guests you would like to see on the show next. See you next week.